Hi, lovely and darling viewers. It's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I'm reviewing Superman's Secret Identity. This is a 4-issue comic from 2004, I think. Art and writing is by Busiek and Stuart Immonen, and these follow a Clark Kent, but it's not Superman Clark Kent. In his world, Superman is a comic and a television show, and just basically the international phenomenon that we have in our world, but doesn't actually exist. There's no person named Clark Kent who has superpowers and can fly. Until there is. So we follow the story of Clark Kent, who is a typical human, normal boy. And his parents just thought they were being funny when they named him Clark Kent because they live in a small town and their last name is Kent. And Clark gets made fun of all the time at school for this. Like, kids are picking on him, asking him if he can fly, if he can pick up stuff with super speed, if he can, like, hit back and stuff. And Clark's life is pretty miserable. He also gets some pretty, I would think they would be cool Christmas presents to get, like, all the Superman stuff, but because he's been dealing with it his whole life, he is not amused by constantly getting Superman presents. But that changes one day when he finds out that he has superpowers. And all of a sudden he can fly and have super speed and x-ray vision and everything. And the first comic deals with a teenage Clark first discovering his powers and deciding what to do with them. And also there are some situations that happen where Clark kind of gets found out and he has to decide whether or not to claim it and be like, yo, I really am Superman, I've got powers and I'm here to save the day, or if he wants to try to live the normal life. So issue 2 follows him as like a young adult as he's going to the big city. He's actually in New York working as a writer for the New Yorker, and he meets this girl named Lois. And she is constantly being set up with Clarks until she's set up with this Clark Kent, and they hit it off, and they have like the perfect relationship, and I love them. Also, Lois in this one is Indian, and I adore it. So yay for diversity. But just like their whole relationship is perfect and wonderful, and they feel so right together. Issue 3 follows Clark and Lois as they have kids and they start a family, and Clark's got to deal with like being a father and having the superpowers at the same time. He's also freaking out because he doesn't know where he got his powers from, and he's not sure if his kids are going to end up having them also. And then issue 4 deals with a much older Clark as he's reaching retirement age and he's dealing with aging and how that affects his superpowers. So it's really cool to see Clark grow up from when he's a teenager to when he's an old man and see his entire life, and just really deal with what a normal person having superpowers would like, what it would be like for them. Especially if you don't know where they came from and you don't have support. Like, there's no Justice League in here. It's just Clark. There are no other superpowered people. So Clark decides to use his superpowers and kind of take on the mantle of Superman. It's kind of interesting because half the people who see him just like dismiss it as being a hallucination. Like, Superman didn't really come save me from that car crash, right? No, that didn't happen. And so he manages to kind of keep his identity on the down low because of that, because people are just like, who's gonna believe me if I tell them Superman saved me? What? There's also no supervillains in this comic. It's mostly Clark saving people from everyday situations. Coming in and saving people from natural disasters or car wrecks, airplane crashes, that kind of stuff. There's no Lex Luthor lurking in the background, trying to take over the world. Clark does have to deal with a government agency that's kind of tracking him and might possibly have very bad motives. Like, who wants to get captured by the Men in Black or the CIA and get, like, dissected and stuff? So yeah, there's this looming threat of the government in the background of these comics. That's kind of the villain, if there is one. So basically, these comics just follow a normal human who gets superpowers and what that's like, and what it's like to live in the shadow of somebody else who has a famous name. So he is going to constantly be compared to Clark Kent in the comics, even as he's an adult, starting at the New Yorker. Like, everybody's still cracking Superman jokes there. And it's kind of like an in-joke because everybody is making fun of him thinking that he doesn't have superpowers, and then he's like, but I do have superpowers and I am Superman. So that's kind of cool. I like those little touches in this. It's also a really cool way to explore what Superman means, like, as a concept in, like, our collective psyche, what we think Superman should be as Clark decides whether or not what he thinks Superman is and whether or not he should live up to that or not. Like, does he have an obligation to be Superman, or is it just in his nature to do it? So I liked that internal struggle with this. And I also just like watching him balance his everyday life, trying to balance his marriage and his family and getting older and deciding when to retire and everything. So taking that. I also love the fact that we see Clark as older because we rarely ever get to see that last like part of life. Like once people get to retirement age, we kind of just like drop them. So I like getting to explore the what comes after. So the art in these comics, I have mixed feelings about. Some of it is like really stunning artwork, like getting to see him fly. That looks visually awesome. But then it's also kind of got not very detailed facial work and stuff, which I like having them look realistic. I like having people look like people rather than like characterized versions of them, I guess. Like there's something not fully formed about Clark in the drawing, which I don't really like. But at the same time, the actual art is very expressive, so that's pretty cool. And we do get stunning stuff like this one where he's flying, and that just looks visually pleasing and exciting and awesome. These comics also play with the fact that Superman is a comic. So like in this world, the Superman comics that we are reading basically exist. And so they play with that. So we get to see the old school comics and how they kind of mirror Clark's life, but kind of don't. I just like the homage to the older stuff. Digging that. I like that that was included in a part of this. And then we've got Clark and Lois, which is like probably my favorite part of this comic, honestly. I always. So one of my favorite parts of any Superman story is Lois and their relationship, and this one totally did not disappoint. I really love Lois in this one and how grounded she is, and she kind of just takes everything in. She's like, oh, okay, this is our life, but I love you, so she's going to be supportive and awesome and amazing. And she still does her own thing and has her own job and runs her own business, and that's pretty much fantastic. Yeah, like I said, some of these are just absolutely stunning, and I can't really argue with the art when I look at a page like this, and I'm like, you know what? The art works. It's great. It's awesome. We're good. We're good. I really enjoyed Superman's Secret Identity. I keep going back and forth between a 4 and 5 star on this. I'm not exactly sure, but it's definitely up there. I love this. I still really love old school Kal-El, the alien from Krypton who comes to Earth and has to like adjust. I love that story. I'm always going to love that story. This one's pretty cool too. This Clark does feel like an alien too, though. He talks about feeling like an outsider on his own planet. Because he has the superpowers, because he's introverted, because even when he was a kid and didn't have powers, the other kids were making fun of him, like his family doesn't get him. So it's still an outsider, Clark Kent, but it's not because he's an alien, it's just because he's a little bit different. Totally love these, totally recommend them. So this is just a different way of telling the story, I guess. Even if you are not a huge fan of traditional Superman, you might want to check these out because it does have that twist where we have this normal human who just suddenly gets powers and has to grapple with that and decide what he's going to do with it, whether to be the good guy, whether to be out in the open, whether to keep it a secret. Lots of internal struggles. Love this one. So yeah, totally check out Superman's Secret Identity if you guys are thinking about it. I highly recommend it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah. So peace out. I love you guys and keep reading. Bye.